Welcome to the Panic Button. I'm Nina.
Welcome to the Panic Button. I'm Jesse.
And today we're reacting to Jordan Peterson's podcast, in which he had on Michael Shellenberger, who is the author of such books as Apocalypse Never and San Francisco. They talk about the Autogynephiles and the transgender queer ideology, and I put some clips together that were very interesting.
Let's walk through that. So we're going to start with the professional association. Okay, so it turns out, apparently, that all you have to do to become a professional association that other professional associations can rely on is to call yourself a professional association. If you aren't actually a professional association, which means you're not a group of scientists and you're not qualified to be doing what you're doing, is to proclaim as loudly as you can that you're operating on behalf of someone who's oppressed. With regards to the medical associations and the psychological associations who've gone along with this, they can point to the fact that they consulted the true experts. And who more to know than those with lived experience in the area? What it really is the invasion, domains of specialization that once required effort by parasites who use ideology to game the system. That brings us to the next issue, because then you describe gender distress. Okay, so let's think about that. Two words, gender and distress. Okay, right. Distress is indistinguishable from two things, generalized negative emotion and absence of positive emotion. Okay, so that's the core for depression and anxiety, and it's the core set of symptoms for virtually every form of pathology that comes to the attention, not only of psychologists, but also of medical profession. See, that's another part of the sleight of hand, because you might say, well, people with gender dysphoria are more likely to commit suicide. It's like, no, depressed and anxious people are more likely to commit suicide. You have to demonstrate that there's an additional utility in your diagnostic label. And that turns out to be extremely difficult. Some of this distress is attributable to confusion about gender. There's no difference between confusion about gender and confusion about identity, right? Those are the same thing. And everybody who seeks psychological treatment has confusion about identity. That's why they seek treatment.
I mean, he makes a good point.
So he was talking about basically to be considered a professional, you don't need any actual schooling or knowledge in the field, certificates, licensing. He was saying that you just have to say that you're working for an oppressed group. And that's kind of where I was very interested in that, because we could just say we're dealing with you know what I mean?
No.
With what he said, anyone can become a group of professionals just by saying they are.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of scary?
Yeah.
Where do the lines lay then?
I don't know. I guess we have to come up with guidelines.
Are there no guidelines?
It doesn't seem like it.
Okay. If you have an issue with your own personality, like a personality disorder, or if you don't know who you are in a lot of facets, if you're struggling in there, gender, especially now, is just a label. It's just an identity to assume, to make you maybe feel like it's a Band-Aid on a broken bone. It makes you feel like there's something happening, but there's not.
Is he saying that, let's say a 13-year-old girl will go into a psychologist's office and she'll be going through puberty, so she'll be having issues with her own identity if she goes in there and she talks about having issues with her gender identity. It would be no different than
I think that's
just a regular girl going in who's having issues with like her body, which all of us did. Yeah. There's no, except the difference is in how the psychologist
handles it.
Yeah, interacts with their patient, which is, well, if they mention gender, I have to affirm. If they don't mention gender, then I can actually ask questions and help them.
Yes.
And I think that's where the young people using gender when they go into a psychologist's office or whatever, it doesn't help them in the long run.
This is basically what I was trying to get to, with what I was saying, which is that if you're confused about who you are to begin with, your personality, your identity to begin with, then it's no wonder that gender, which especially now is just an identity, is something that comes up for you. You know, it's not a surprise. But at the end of the day, it's just something to do with your personality and the fact that you don't know who you are.
Yeah, the identifying is the issue.
Conceptual side. It's inexcusable. Okay, so now we have gender distress as delineated by a pack of professionals who aren't professional and who aren't a pack and are certainly not a professional association. And what do they recommend? They don't recommend the minimal necessary intervention. So the clinical literature 6 years ago was absolutely clear with regard to the small number of cases of gender dysphoria that emerged in early childhood. Very rare. 1 in 3,000. Very rare. Leave them the hell alone.
Right.
Till they're 18.
Yeah.
Most of them turn out to be gay. And 90% of them, and the existence of that final 10% is highly debatable, accept the physical reality of their embodiment. Right, so the rule is don't do anything stupid. Now, the man who established that, who was Ken Zucker, right? He ran the best journal that dealt with childhood gender dysphoria for years up in Toronto. That was his recommendation for treatment, and the bloody radicals ran him out of business 10 years ago. Right. That's when all this idiocy started up in Toronto, which bloody well figures. Okay, so now you're not supposed to do anything, right? Just wait. Bad treatment is worse than no treatment, okay? But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to take the most extreme possible, imaginable surgical intervention, and then we're going to combine that with the most extreme possible imaginable hormonal intervention. And then we're going to recommend that, and we're going to tell people that if they don't listen, their children are going to die, right? They're going to commit suicide, which is a complete bloody lie.
I was just thinking about the type of person that, instead of waiting to see what would happen with the child, rush to try to aid that child with their identity issues. I could imagine it would be of a feminine persuasion, for sure. It seems like a lot of women do that, where they see an issue and they want to fix it immediately. You know, you skin your knee, you fall down.
It's also an anxiety response.
And it's like, oh, how can I help you? How can I fix it? When, you know, if you sit and watch the child and allow them to help themselves, it would be better for them. It seems like an overpowering mother kind of thing.
I mean, there are biological men who are thinking that way too, because these kids are the ones who are like, no, I'm this different gender. No, I'm this different gender.
Yeah, well, kids think they're super smart, and they're actually really stupid.
The problem lies in the parents that don't think beyond that. That think that their kids are right they know everything.
Yeah, because it's the overprotective parents that are to
They're enabling them.
Yeah, enabling the sickness. It's like Eugenia Cooney's mother, enabling the sickness.
I was going to say, it's like having someone who self-harm and buying them a pack of razors.
Like California's instance, having a whole bunch of drug addicts on the street and just giving them
somewhere to shoot up.
Yeah.
That's not even beginning to say how they're literally converting these poor children. This is conversion.
Conversion what?
I don't know if it's conversion therapy, if that's the proper term for it, but by pumping these kids full of hormones that will 9 out of 10 times just be gay.
Yeah.
You're converting people who would be homosexuals into these asexual entities. And before they even have a chance to realize they could have a sexuality.
We're going to offer this absolutely cataclysmic treatment with unimaginably dire consequences to people who don't even understand and can't understand what they're agreeing to. Right. Then we're going to promise them that's how they'll find their true self. Right. So that's where we're at. Right. It's so sickening. It's so sickening that.
Well, when you're a kid, like I was a kid once. I was a teenager once. I was 13. I went through puberty.
I know what it's like this.
Oh, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have hips and feel fat when you were thin for so long.
I don't know that.
You know. I know what it's like to be figuring yourself out. And to be so obsessed with fitting in that you're not really taking a lot of things into consideration. But that's the mind of a child. And unfortunately, when you are a child and you're thinking like this, you think that you actually know the information when really you don't, because you can't comprehend it because your brain doesn't fully develop until the age of like 25, 26. So it's odd that the parents are allowing the children to adult, to lead.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
If someone that you trusted, like a medical provider, for example, kept telling you, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, wouldn't you think that the medical provider has your best interest in mind and is giving you the best recommendation? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying...
No.
I'm not saying you specifically. I'm saying general people. Like, wouldn't most people assume their medical provider has their best interest in mind?
Nowadays, we have YouTube, we have Google, we have many different search engines, we have the internet. If anyone is blindly believing anything nowadays, they're doing a disservice to themselves and the people around them. Because you have to research. You cannot blindly believe anybody. And not even a professional nowadays. No, you have to do the research.
If you were your average Joe or Jane, would you not trust what your doctor tells you to do?
Yes. And then something terrible would happen, and I would feel the repercussions of that and then learn my lesson in a horrible way and then wish I could go back in time and change it.
And that's what these parents are doing right now with a lot of their kids.
Yes. But unfortunately, they won't do the whole, oh, I wish I didn't do that, go back and change it. They will double down until a Gypsy Rose thing happens and they end up on their bed.
But this
dead.
is why I say not all these parents necessarily want their kids to shut up or want to do something harmful. A lot of the time,
They think they're doing good.
They think they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And that is the problem.
And that's the saddest thing, actually.
When you're giving the child what the child wants without taking into any consideration anything else, other opinions, other research.
Unfortunately, they're going to be parents no matter what. And all we can do is find ways to stop this from happening. Because right now, be it for good reasons or bad, it's happening like crazy.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the documentaries. We're going to have a lot of content to react to.
It'll
There's
be
gonna
very
a lot
sad.
of documentaries. There comes a point where it's like, we warned you.
Yeah.
Well, we warned you, and
I'm
we
just
warned
saying-
you, and you decided, no, I know better, and then this stuff happens.
Yeah, but it's sad because these are their, like I said, not all of these people have bad interests in mind.
Munchausen by proxy.
For a lot of these people, they care a lot about their kids. And for others, they just want to shut up. These kids are being sexually mutilated. Even if they don't have surgeries, if they start puberty blockers, they're also still being sexually mutilated. They're never going to fully develop. Like you're saying they're all going to kill their parents. That's even more sad because you can't even live a life. Like, and now you're going to get incarcerated and have no sex drive. Man, that sucks.
Well, the way things are going, they probably won't be incarcerated.
Very true.
Left, I'm obviously much more, I've abandoned a lot of those radical left views, but I'm still very high on openness in terms of personality trait, right? So I'm sort of like, so if a biological male wants to dress up as a woman and go out in public dressed up as a woman, my first instinct is, I'm fine with that. Like, it's a free country. You should be able to do that. And then, and I think I'm using this case in particular because you may know that there are two psychologists who have done a lot of work studying the people that call themselves trans women. We might say trans-identified males, or you say trans women, it's fine. But there's two psychologists, Ray Blanchard and oh my gosh, now I'm blanking on the second one. Basically, two psychologists that have done the research on these men, and they've identified them. They say that what it is, it's autogynephilia.
That's
the word they've
Blanchard's
invented.
word. Yeah,
Blanchard,
yeah.
right? So it's
nobody disputed that, by the way.
Right.
5 years ago,
No.
every mainstream clinician
Yes.
who was educated understood this, right? That transsexualism was an autogynephilic condition, right? And it primarily affected men, or primarily manifested by men, and it often was fully realized, let's say, in their 30s and 40s. Although there might be a history of such behavior. Like the psychoanalysts had a whole well-developed theory, which I think is one that's very, like the theory there in part, the deep theory, the one that I thought was most appropriate, was that these were often men who, and this goes along with the openness idea, who had constrained the development of their personality in the stereotypically masculine direction too much. They'd put a more open temperament into a too tight box. And what was happening was that the impulse to have them develop the cross-sex proclivities that might have expanded their personality, that was all suppressed, and it emerged in a warped and sexualized manner. And they started to play out in the world what they should have been manifesting as a psychological transformation, right?
That's so
That's a
interesting.
Jungian take. It's a great take.
Yeah.
It's a great take.
Yeah.
And so the play, that autogynephilia is a form of sexualized play in relationship to identity transformation. And I think that's
so
right.
interesting.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
great.
what
It's
Blanchard
great
said. And by the way,
idea.
it's Mike, the other psychologist.
And this is why I don't like being around autogynephiles. Because it's a type of sexualized play, which I've been saying all along. That's why it's very uncomfortable to be around AGPs, because they are turned on. It's not attraction, it's being turned on by being dressed as a woman.
They never said turned on.
No, they did. Yeah, I've heard it multiple times this week. I've looked it up. It's not about being attracted. It's about being turned on. It is sexual.
Are you turned? Okay, so here's my whole question on this. Are you turned on then all the time?
Yes.
How is that possible?
I don't know. I'm not a man.
I
You would have to ask a man, because a man would have the answers to this
don't
question.
have answers. I just have questions.
I mean, I just saw on Twitter today some dude dressed as a woman with a boner in a woman's bathroom. Again.
What is happening on your phone?
I don't know.
I think that it needs therapy. Your phone
My
needs
phone
therapy.
no, the world needs therapy.
Yeah, your phone's seeing some shit, though.
Yeah, because it's seen the world and it says, what the fuck? Because it's crazy out there.
Yeah, your phone needs a therapist.
The women are more of a threat to other women when they allow this shit to happen.
Amen.
Which I believe is it's like a feminine social bubble mental psychosis, like a collaborative mental psychosis.
Women will go mental for each other. It's documented history. Look it
Yeah,
up.
I mean, I've been in girl groups. You know, I've had the cliques in high school, middle school,
Y'all have read
college.
The Crucible, right? She was dancing in the woods, and she was dancing in the woods, and she was dancing in the woods. They were all talking to the devil.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
That's what I say. I guess.
Yeah, but Stacy, don't say anything about the trans women because our friends are gonna hate that and we'll get canceled. We can't do that because popularity is the only thing that helps us exist.
Cancel me.
A lot of girls, they're obsessed with the social
Status.
clout.
The status that you have.
Yeah, it's not until later on when they find out that they were acting so retarded through their teens and 20s and when they should have just thought for themselves. They don't hit that till their 30s. By that time, they've already made a mess out of society. Thanks, ladies. Well, there were more clips that I had, but we have to cut it off here because it's going to be way too long and the camera's going to overheat. But we're going to do a part 2 eventually. You're freaking me out with that, whatever the fuck you're doing over there. I saw it out of my peripheral. And I'm like, not even going to look. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell. Join our memberships. And stay salty.